So I'd like to hear each of you speak briefly about yourselves, your identity as queer folk. For the rest of the panel, we use the term queer to encompass all of us, okay? Including allies, okay? And your identities as writers and any other aspects of identity you think is inclusive there. And hopefully you'll read a poem. And any order, it doesn't really matter, okay?
Okay, Drew.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so I wrote a little something before I came today. Cramped quarters here. In thinking about the topic of this panel, what came to mind for me was the concept of drag realness from the early 90s documentary film Paris is Burning. The film documents a community of Black gay New Yorkers as they face the cultural climate of their time. These men frequently hold drag ball events and have a competition of sorts called drag realness. If you choose to compete in drag realness, you have a variety of categories to choose from: executive realness, homeboy realness, military realness, and the list goes on. The judges of realness look for accurate attire. Someone in executive realness might carry a briefcase and wear a suit, etc. And accurate poise and demeanor. The more natural you can be within your category, the more real you are. Essentially, the thinking behind this competition is that if you can walk down the street of New York and people could mistake you for a hard-hitting businessman, then you could be that businessman. This concept of realness seems to me to be, in a way, a pretty accurate description of my relationship and engagement with language. As a child, I had a big box of jewelry and a few crinolines that my aunt gave me when my stepfather wasn't looking. At a certain point, these were discovered, of course, and disposed of in an attempt to stifle the inevitable. My first complete manuscript primarily addresses consumerism, the commerce of language, exchange value, and my skepticism with the seductiveness of the lyric. But the language itself is very tacky, glitzy, glamorous. That's how I call it. But in a sense, I'm able to swim in a pool of sparkles if I want to. I'm allowing that young boy to throw away the norms and give him back his crinolines. I'm becoming the boy I wish I could have been years ago. I'm making that boy real in a way. In my current project, I'm trying on a wide range of outfits. I'm a Victorian serial killer who speaks in grandiloquent, overblown sentences. I'm various young boys who all have unique fantasies of becoming fairy tale villainesses. I'm a scene from a soap opera. I'm a 5-year-old boy who integrates himself with a televised version of Flashdance. And ultimately, I'm myself. All of these threads require me to channel certain people or wear a certain identity. In this way, the language comes from a real place. I'm becoming these various identities. Language is the arena in which my drag realness plays out and is able to exist. So do I read a poem now, or okay? I will. Okay. Searching.
Nice thing about having a computer, I get to watch and do everything.
Okay, this might be an older. Okay, here we go. Okay, this poem is called Glitterbug. While I find it, I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's basically, I was watching the Home Shopping Network a lot for this poem. And I would wait for this specific guest to, or this host to do the show, because she would say these really bizarre things. Like, she would run out of language and she would start finding, in this poem, she actually did say, the watch looks like a gold Oreo sandwich. I'm going to hold the mic because it'll be easier for me to read this that way. Okay. This jewelry tells a story. The story story becomes the jewel, the flutter twinkle motion, diamond detailed ice dripping down your dress. A story, like a giant raft of amethyst floating in a pool. For years we've waited. Now, for the first time, thanks for being here. And here's a semi-precious flea aflutter. A flutter of women collecting little critters. A chain of cats and dogs. Puddles in your hand. Tell me, are you a blue girl? Then Malibu blues for you. It's your pineapple platter in the sky. Your sandy sheets hatching pearls, sighs. We've moved 11,000. For years you've waited. Pick up the phone and let's say hi to Trish. Thanks for being here. Just hear the lustrous pixies on their raft, a splashing mystical tale, a timeless story shimmer. What's your story, Trish? This jewelry. It's a gold Oreo sandwich. Yum, yum. Like the Louvre around your wrist, or watchdogs barking sparkles. All night I'm awake. A haunting husband, blinking light bulb eyes, fluttering like a whipped satin string, like a mother's lullaby, filled with diamond rings, with mockingbirds on mute. A story for tomorrow I'm in trouble, like a bad girl in orthopedic pumps, good-looking trouble, with poet's sleeves in animal, which is absolutely forever. Forever's in flex pay, and husbands were born to pay. Nightly to be plundered like pajamaed piggy banks. Can't sleep, we'll sprinkle the town in rubies. You'll be a glitter goddess, an actress on clouds of bling. Aurora Borealis, screaming good taste. Going so fast, my days and nights are all mixed up. Get the azalea, it's almost gone. Layer lacquered petals form a bed. A garden shooting from your nape. Stories shooting through my brain, like sequin shrapnel from a war of glam. Going so fast, I'm all mixed up. The enemy is beautiful and almost out the door, like a hinged enamel Jesus with a pyrotechnic heart. And Trish, you're breaking my heart. Tell me a story. If you are a fashion person, you are a fashion person until you expire. A limited supply, an Elvis rhinestone coffin. Turn the key, lock at your child in gold. It's a door opening into shut-eye, like a story or a lullaby, in payments, so easy, but I'm in trouble. I was an actress who forgot her lines. If only I had a mirror ball for memory, one for every mystical, every magical mood. Are you a blue girl? Tell me, Trish, are you a blue sequin dress unraveling into a puddle, a princess cut by a prince, a metallic floor mat necklaced in mud? Are you one time only? Are you out the door, locked into our treasure vault, gone as a car-struck critter, a poet without a sleeve? The diamond cube of ice melting out the door, out the window, 11 stories of a princess fluttering down, twinkling like a lush tropical getaway from memories. Collect them all. For years I've waited to. Lock it in gold, guilt-free gold, 18 carats, free of worry. When you wear this jewelry, tells a story. Tell me a story. A jewel that speaks a statement, authentic and bold, like hot fire in a blizzard. Snowflakes in red and white and blue, a snow that looks substantial. It melts, it puddles in your hand. It's vintage, but we've made it by hand. This weather, this distress, this jewel to wear, night or day. Wear it to work, to church, to a can booze cruise across the sea. A jewel that speaks a story. Tell me a story that breaks my heart. A good-looking story, one that's easy as a bad boy in bed. A story that fetches my coffee, my paper, my remote, one handed down from generation to generation, detailed in simulated diamond. Tell me, Trish, one time only.
Do you want this one?
No, this one. This is good, I think. Everyone can hear me, right? Well, I don't have a prepared statement on this, and thinking about this question sort of on the spot. I have to say that I've always found the idea of identity or the self to be exceedingly questionable. I remember once being at a bookstore, a feminist bookstore in Wisconsin, and someone asking me, they said, do you think of yourself as a radical feminist? And I said, I have difficulty thinking about myself at all. And so I have often found my strongest sense of being when I've been connected to other things which are sort of outside the social definitions of identities or roles. You might have noticed that I have a rather deep voice, and this in and of itself has taught me a number of things. For instance, on the phone, the response is often, "Oh, sure, sir." And so this would bother me at first, but then I realized that when they assumed I was sir, that I got much better service. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. If I get on the phone and I've got a lot of energy and my voice is deeper, I'm sir, and it's like, yes, sir, how to? So I decided to experiment, and I'd be like, okay, let's see what the girl voice is. What gets yes, ma'am? So I started cultivating this other response, which was very diffident, sort of hesitant, like, yeah, can you help me? And in that response, same voice, but the whole carriage of it and the whole energy behind it made it feminine. And so, in a way, I've never really believed in these roles. When I read Judith Butler, and she says all gender is performance, this seems to be entirely true from my experience. So I don't have any sense of a strong identity beyond that. My strongest sense of being what we might call being a person is when I have felt connected to other things, particularly to the natural world, to people in a community, or to a particular person or group of people, when there's that strong sense of connection. But it's not an isolated thing. It's not this sense of a self, like this sort of fixed reality, much less of the various identities that can be attached to that. I have often thought of those identities out there as something which other people impose on us. And so, I'm going to read one poem which is rather shorter than Drew's, but it's about an experience when I was 17. I think that was about 17. So it was written much later. And this talks about that connection to my connection to a sense of being. And also there is language in here. I was reading a lot of the French poets, Baudelaire, Rimbaud, and also Lorca. And I am the flower thief, who can't remember their varieties and names, speaking in tongues among them. It was months before you, months before I would smell you on my fingers. For hours, the yellow pollen of your sweet cunt, and perhaps that's all I longed for in those deserted meadows and civic plazas when I was a thief among the flowers. There were so many blooming in the false dawn, each with a particular shape and a way of wounding the fingers and intoxicating the lungs, the slice of their blade-like leaves, the heavy heads full of rain, the stamen and pistil in the deep-throated cups, the creamy yellow stain of the corolla and calyx, the lips of the leaves, artemisia, sea lavender, the blue monk's hood. I knew only the names adrift in the book, not attached to the world or what they were attached to. I was just learning to speak. I was imitating Lorca in the cool drench of the dawn, chanting, green, green, I want you green, remembering that moment when watching love die upon a stage, you plucked as if feverish at my white sleeve. I could have, like Rimbaud, named them Flora and taken them home to wither on my mother's table, or like Baudelaire, punished une fleur for all the insolence of nature. But I was just intoxicated, caught up in the meadows that I carried in my arms. Years later, I would wonder, what had I done with them? All those fields of flowers. I must have slipped them into some depth of water, must have put them into some translucent vase or someone's arms. But all I remember was being among them, how the flowers so freshly severed felt in my arms, how they moved against my lips, a drift of shifting color, the touch of their petals brushing my cheeks, their stems like the body of the brain against my skin, and the sense of holding something that I could barely contain.